Now back to the executive orders signed by President Trump yesterday. One of them was the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement. NBC5's Kate Chappell is looking into what that is and what that could mean for efforts to combat climate change.
The next item here is the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty.
As one of his first acts in office, President Donald Trump signed an executive order to pull the United States out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Nearly every country in the world signed the treaty in 2015, vowing to work together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, with an overarching goal to keep global temperatures from rising more than 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Some nations, including the U.S., have also pledged billions of dollars to assist developing nations.
We're going to save over $1 trillion by withdrawing from that treaty.
Trump pulled out of the Paris Agreement during his first term in office, arguing it unfairly burdens the American economy. China has been ranked the top emitter of greenhouse gases, followed by the U.S., according to data from the environment data platform Climate Watch. The U.S. officially rejoined the Paris Agreement under President Biden in 2021. Environmental groups have criticized the withdrawal decision, concerned other nations may follow suit after the hottest year on record and major disasters, including wildfires in L.A. and hurricanes on the southeast, intensified, scientists say, by rising global temperatures.
What are the impacts for everyday people?
We're going to continue to see the increased severity of storm events. The climate change damages just in the United States are estimated at $100 billion a year.
Professor Mark Templeton, the director of the Abrams Environmental Law Clinic at the University of Chicago, expects continued state action to be critical.
Through something called the Clean Energy Jobs Act and the Future Energy Jobs Act to secure investments in clean, renewable energy in infrastructure and deployment in Illinois.
The withdrawal is expected to take about a year. The U.S. will join Libya, Yemen, and Iran as the only nations not part of the Paris Agreement. Kate Chappell, NBC5 News.
And on Inauguration Day, President signed the most executive orders ever signed by a president in one day.
And one of them makes a clear distinction about how the federal government will recognize gender. Take a listen to the president.
It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
NBC5's Courtney Sisk spent the day reviewing that executive order, and she's joining us to talk about what this means moving forward. Courtney.
So this executive order basically says there are only two biological sexes and the federal government will legally recognize only those two. So what does this mean and how will it affect us? First, it's important to understand those in the LGBTQ plus communities and their supporters recognize the terms sex and gender as different definitions. For them, sex refers to what you were assigned at birth, male or female, and in some cases, intersex. And sexual orientation can be who you're attracted to or want to have a relationship with. Those sexual orientations include gay, lesbian, straight, bisexual, asexual, and more. And while gender is about who you identify as, that's male, female, transgender, and others. What the president's executive order says is that the federal government will only recognize the term sex and not gender, and will only recognize male and female. Why is this? Well, the president says it's to defend women's rights and freedom by using clear language and policies that he says recognize women are biologically female and men are biologically male. So what does this mean and what could this look like moving forward? Well, in 2022, the Biden administration allowed U.S. citizens to be able to select a gender-neutral X on their passports. Now that could be a problem because the new executive order wants secretaries of state and Homeland Security to implement changes to require government-issue identification documents, including passports, visas, and global entry cards to reflect one of the two sexes, male or female. That could also impact other government documents. It would also mean single-sex spaces like prisons and some shelters would be designated by male and female and not gender identity. As you saw previously, President Trump attended a prayer service this morning where Reverend Marianne Edgar Buddy took a portion of her sermon to speak directly to the president on this topic.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives.
And it's important to note executive orders are what a president wants to do. They can be eventually overturned or repealed, just like President Biden did when he took office in 2021, reversing Trump's first term executive orders. Congress can also attempt to overturn executive orders as well.
So there's a lot of questions here still, and a lot will, I guess, determine on what happens and how it gets implemented. But I know one of the big questions that always surrounds gender or sex, as you whatever you want to may want to call it, has to do with restrooms. Any word on how they'll be affected?
So the executive order does not explicitly state anything or make mention of restrooms. However, it does say that there would be a privacy in intimate spaces, but it only makes mention at this point of women's prisons or shelters. Time will tell if intimate spaces actually translates to bathrooms as well. A key takeaway here, though, is that this will not all happen overnight, and civil rights organizations are expected to sue this administration over this particular order.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks
Very helpful to have it explained like that. Thank you, Courtney.
Appreciate it, Courtney.
One of the executive orders signed by President Trump on his first day in office would limit birthright citizenship, which guarantees the right to citizenship for anyone born in the United States. Charlie Wojiciechowski joins us now with a look at what that would mean and how it is already being challenged. Charlie?
Well, Marion, President Trump's executive order seeks to end birthright citizenship, not by changing the Constitution, but by changing the qualifications for someone born on U.S. soil to be considered a U.S. citizen. Now, under the order, you would not be a citizen if your mother was unlawfully present in the United States and your father was not a United States citizen or a lawful permanent resident. You would also not be a U.S. citizen if your mother was lawful but temporary, like a student or someone on a tourist or work visa, and your father was not a citizen or lawful permanent resident. Trump's order claims the 14th Amendment was never interpreted to give universal citizenship to everyone born in the United States.
This next order relates to the definition of birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment of the United States.
That's a good one. Birthright. That's a big one.
Even as he signed the document last night, the president admitted that he expected challenges to his executive order that effectively ends birthright citizenship. Victoria Carmona is the director of the Immigration Law Clinic at IIT's Kent College of Law. Can you change a constitutional amendment with the stroke of a pen?
Absolutely not, right? That's not what our founding fathers intended. It is not what is written in the Constitution, right? The Constitution should not be able to be just amended by the whim of one decision from one office or from one person, or just swayed by one election. Right?
Even proposing a change to a constitutional amendment requires the approval of 2/3 of the members of both the House and the Senate, and getting it passed requires ratification from 3/4 of the states. The order is being challenged today by the American Civil Liberties Union.
The notion is that the president simply shouldn't be able to do this, can't do it legally, and is doing harm to people is really the assertion that we make in the complaint.
Now, this order would only apply to children born in the United States 30 days after the order was signed. In the meantime, more than 22 state attorneys general, including Illinois' Kwame Arul, have sued to stop the implementation of that order. Stefan and Marion.
Okay. Charlie Wojiciechowski with the story today. Thank you so much, Charlie. Appreciate it.